The number of people who write but won't call themselves writers is staggering. They'll say, I'm trying to write, or I write a little, or I'm working on something but it's not done yet. Just say it. I'm a writer. Here's why that matters. This video is about the identity crisis that keeps most writers stuck. The belief that you're not a real writer until somebody else says you are. By the end, I'm going to show you why claiming that identity changes everything about your relationship to the work, and why waiting for permission is the one thing keeping you from actually finishing. Welcome, everyone. If you don't know me, my name is Daniel, and this is The Story Renaissance. If you've ever hesitated when someone asks you what you do, if you've ever downplayed your writing or added qualifiers like aspiring or wannabe, this is for you. Because that hesitation isn't just modesty. It's a signal that you don't actually believe you have the right to be here. And when you don't believe you belong, you don't act like someone who belongs. You don't protect your time. You don't finish your work. You don't take yourself seriously. You stay in this weird limbo where you're writing, but you're not a writer. And that distinction is killing your momentum. Here's what most people think makes you a writer: being published, having an agent, finishing a book, getting paid, winning an award, having someone else validate what you're doing. And until you hit one of these milestones, you're just what? Pretending? I used to think this way. I wrote for years without calling myself a writer because I hadn't finished anything. I hadn't published anything. Who was I to claim that title? So I'd say things like, I'm working on a novel, or I like to write in my free time, always distancing myself from the identity, always leaving myself an out. But that mindset kept me from ever actually becoming the writer I wanted to be. Because if you don't see yourself as a writer, you don't make the decisions a writer makes. You don't prioritize the work. You don't fight for it. You treat it like a hobby you'll get to when life calms down. And life never calms down. So when does it actually become okay to call yourself a writer? But real quick, before I answer that, if you're struggling with this, I run a community for writers called The Story Renaissance. It's just a space where you can show up, write with other people, and stop doing this alone. Links in the description and the pinned comment below if you're interested. Let's keep going. Here's the truth. If you write, you're a writer. That's it. That's the credential. Not publication, not an MFA, not permission from someone who's made it. You write, you're a writer. And I know that sounds overly simple, maybe even naive, but think about it this way. If someone paints, we call them a painter. We don't wait until they've sold a piece or had a gallery show. We don't say, oh, you're an aspiring painter. If someone runs, we call them a runner, even if they're slow, even if they've never done a marathon. But with writing, we've created all these gates, all these checkpoints you have to pass before you're allowed to claim the identity. And I think it's because writing feels so tied to who we are. It's not just something we do, it's something we are. So calling ourselves writers when we haven't proven it feels vulnerable, like we're claiming something we haven't earned. But you earn it by doing it, not by waiting for someone else to tell you it's okay. Kafka never saw most of his work published in his lifetime. He actually asked his friend Max Brod to burn everything after he died. The manuscripts, the stories, all of it. He didn't think it was good enough. He didn't think it mattered. But he was still a writer. Every day he sat down and wrote, he was a writer. Not because the world recognized him, not because he had a book deal or critical acclaim, but because he couldn't not write. The validation came later, long after he was gone, but it didn't make him more of a writer than he already was. That's the only thing that actually counts, the doing of it. And here's why that shift in identity is so important. When you start calling yourself a writer, something shifts. You start making different choices. You start protecting your time differently. You start taking the work more seriously because you've decided it's not just a hobby, it's who you are. I saw this happen when I finally stopped hedging, when I stopped saying I'm working on something and started saying I'm a writer. It felt uncomfortable at first, like I was lying, like someone was going to call me out and ask to see my credentials, but no one did. And slowly, I started acting like it was true. I started treating my writing time as non negotiable. I stopped apologizing for it. I stopped waiting for the perfect conditions before I sat down to work. Because writers write. That's what they do. And if I was a writer, then I needed to write. It sounds almost too simple, but that identity shift is what got me to actually finish things. Not talent, not discipline, just deciding I was allowed to be here. But there's a deeper reason why we resist this, and it's not what you think. I think the real reason we won't call ourselves writers is because we're terrified of failing at the one thing we care about the most. If you're just trying to write or working on something, you have an out. You can quit. You can walk away, and it doesn't mean anything about who you are. But if you call yourself a writer and then you don't finish, if you call yourself a writer and the work isn't good, if you call yourself a writer and no one cares, that feels like proof that you were never supposed to be here in the first place. So we hedge, we stay small, We keep the identity at arm's length so it can't hurt us if it doesn't work out. But here's what I've learned. You can't half commit to this and expect it to work. You can't keep one foot out the door and wonder why you're not making progress. There's a story about Toni Morrison. Before she was Toni Morrison, she was just a single mom working as an editor and writing before dawn. No one knew her name yet. No book deal, no Pulitzer, just someone who got up early to write before her kids woke up. But she was a writer because she was writing. She didn't wait for somebody to give her permission. She just claimed it and kept going. And at some point, you have to do the same thing. You have to decide. You have to claim it, even if you're terrified, even if you haven't proven it yet. Because the writers who finish aren't the ones who wait for permission. They're the ones who gave it to themselves. Here's what I need you to understand. You're not going to feel like a writer one day. You're not going to wake up published or validated or certain that you belong here. You just have to decide that you are and then act like it's true. That's the shift. That's the whole thing. Stop waiting for someone to tell you it's okay. Stop waiting for the right credentials or the right milestone. If you write, you're a writer. Say it out loud, put it in your bio, introduce yourself that way. Not because you've earned it through some external measure, but because writing is what you do. And the people who do a thing get to call themselves that thing. The moment you claim that identity, really claim it without the qualifiers, without the apologies, everything changes. You start treating your work like something you'll get to eventually. You start protecting it. You start finishing things. You start moving like someone who's supposed to be here because you are. If you're tired of feeling stuck in that aspiring limbo, if you want to be around people who've decided they're writers and are actually doing the work, I built a space for that. It's called the Story Renaissance. It's a community where we write together, keep each other accountable, and stop waiting for permission to take this seriously. No courses, no gatekeeping, just writers showing up and doing the thing. You can start your 7-day free trial today. The link is in the description or the pinned comment below. I'd love to see you there. So here's what I want you to take from this. You don't need permission to call yourself a writer. You don't need to be published or validated or finished. You just need to write. And if you're doing that, you're already here. The only thing standing between you and that identity is you. Now that you understand this, the next video you need to watch is this one right here about why I stopped trying to write every day. Because once you've claimed this identity, you need to build a sustainable relationship with the work. And that video shows you how. I'll see you there.